was Sunday, December 17th, 1933. A cold and drizzly evening in Canton, and parents took their children's hands and climbed the wide staircase of the First Presbyterian Church. There they sat, shoulder to shoulder, in stiff-backed pews, joining a crowd drawn from every corner of the city. Church elders, men and women of privilege, jobless mill workers, bankrupted shop owners, widows trying to keep their children under one roof. They assembled to hear the annual reading of Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol.
But he was a tight-fisted, hand-at-the-grindstone Scrooge, a squeezing, wrenching, grasping, scraping, clutching, covetous old sinner.
Ah! Humbug!
At this festive season of the year, Mr. Scrooge, a few of us are endeavoring to raise a fund to buy the poor some meat and drink and means of warmth. What shall I put you down for?
Nothing.
You wish to be anonymous?
I wish to be left alone. It is not my business.
Business, cried the ghost, wringing its hands again. Mankind was my business. The common welfare was my business. Charity, mercy, forbearance, and benevolence were all my business.
It was a tradition of long-standing in Canton, but during this bleak holiday season in the depths of the Depression, it took on a special meaning.
There never was such a goose. Its tenderness and flavor were the themes of universal admiration, eked out by applesauce and mashed potatoes. It was a sufficient dinner for the whole family.
Spirit, hear me! I am not the man I was. I will honor Christmas in my heart and try to keep it all the year. I will live in the past and the present and the future.
And it was always said of him that he knew how to keep Christmas well. May that be truly said of us and all of us. And so, as Tiny Tim observed, God bless us everyone!
The audience at First Presbyterian Church left and at the conclusion of the performance and walked out into a landscape that Charles Dickens would have recognized all too well. For 4 years since the onset of the Great Depression in 1929, Canton citizens have been battered by an economic storm of ruthless intensity. The city was sinking fast, mired in a systemic failure so pervasive that it bred more resignation than revolution. Banks closed their doors as depositors were shocked to learn that their life savings were gone. Storefronts and factories went dark for want of business. In Ohio, the jobless numbered more than 1 in 3, while some put the unemployment figure here in Canton at 50%. Bankruptcies mounted, families were evicted over and over again, and parents tried to hide their despair from their children and from each other. Hunger was rampant, as proud and desperate people were without even the 7 cents to pay for a loaf of bread. First Presbyterian Church itself had seen better times. Attendance was plummeting. Even among the stalwart members, some were losing faith in themselves, in one another, and in God.
We gathered on porches
Copies of the Canton Repository, selling at 3 cents apiece, were passed hand to hand. And the next morning, Monday, December 18th, many read there an advertisement making an offer that seemed too good to be true.
In consideration of the white-collar man.
Suppose if I were confronted by an economic reality where the bread of tomorrow was the problem of today. There's a question in my mind if I would accept charity directly offered by welfare organizations. I know that there are hundreds of men that are confronted with economic problems who think, feel, and act the same. To men or families in such position, the maker of this offer, who will never be known, will be glad if he is given an opportunity to help from 50 to 75 such families, so they may spend a merry and joyful Christmas. To such men and families who will request such financial aid, the writer pledges their identities will never be revealed. In writing, please familiarize me with your true circumstances, and financial aid will be promptly sent. Please write B. Verdot, General Delivery, Canton, Ohio.
The offer seemed so miraculous it required verification in an accompanying editorial text.
The name B. Verdot is, of course, fictitious. Perhaps the name Kris Kringle is fictitious too. But the genuineness of spirit of giving that he represents has never been questioned.
Letters in response to the ad came from every walk of life. A car dealer, a mill walker, a musician, an array of fallen executives that read like a who's who of city nobles. And there were children, like the 12-year-old writer who secretly wrote on behalf of her widowed mother, who was trying to feed 6. In that week before Christmas, 150 checks in the amount of $5, each bearing the signature of B. Verdot, were sent to individuals and families in and around the city. Today, $5 doesn't sound like much, but for many that December, it was more money than they had seen in a long time. The checks allowed for many a child to go to bed with a full stomach, for enough coal to heat the house for more than a week, for some token payment to the grocer or a doctor who had looked after a family illness without pay. But B. Verdot's gift was more than a long shot at the lottery. It raised the spirits of thousands with the knowledge that someone, one of Canton's own, cared. But who was B. Verdot?
Hi-ho, Silver! Away! Who was that masked man?
All of Canton was wondering the identity of this mysterious local hero. The truth was known only to a few individuals then, and the secret was maintained for 75 years. In 2008, writer Ted Gupp came into possession of a suitcase containing family memorabilia kept by his grandmother. In it, he found canceled checks, letters, thank you notes, and a copy of the Canton Repository with the advertisement. Ted discovered that B. Verdot was his grandfather. His real name was Sam Stone. Stone's Clothes was a store on the corner of Tuscarawas and Market. Sam opened the business in the 1920s, and his hard work and people skills made it flourish. He lunched at Bender's regularly and probably met there some of the leaders of the Canton business community, men such as George Monod and Frank Dick. George Monod built and then tragically lost the largest auto dealership in the city. Frank Dick was the son of the founder of one of Canton's largest industries. They were perfect examples of the white-collar men to whom the ad was addressed. They were wealthy, respected, public-spirited businessmen. But as Stone himself learned more than once, hard times meant that the bright line that separated the favored class from those below them could dissolve almost overnight, exposing the fragile divide between the haves and the have-nots. In that week before Christmas 1933, both of these men responded to the advertisement of B. Verdot, explaining their financial need reversals and asking to be considered as recipients of his generosity. Both received $5 checks and replied with gracious thank you notes, expressing the hope of one day meeting and repaying B. Verdot when times were better.
My dear friend, I wish to thank you kindly for the assistance you have given me, and I assure you it is very greatly appreciated. And I hope that I may have the pleasure of meeting you personally, offering me the opportunity of expressing my gratitude for this act of friendship. Before I unfortunately met business reverses, my greatest pleasure was found in assisting everyone about me in every possible way. I hope that I shall again be in a position to carry on the good work. Wishing you a most enjoyable Christmas and continued success. I am very gratefully yours, Frank J. Dick.
Sam Stone would have understood well these men who had built businesses and then lost everything. Stone's Clothes provided for Sam, his wife Minna, and their 3 daughters the perfect realization of the American dream. A lovely home on 17th Street, a summer place at Turkey Foot. But with the crash of '29, he was on the verge of financial ruin. It took him 3 years of hard work, but Sam fought his way back from the brink. That Christmas of 1933, he knew how lucky he was, and that he could easily have been one of the supplicants to B. Verdot, a role he invented in part to play homage to the fickle nature of fortune. The pseudonym B. Verdot, by the way, was constructed from the names of Sam's 3 daughters. Barbara, B., Virginia, Ver, and Dorothy, known as Dotsy. The need for the pseudonym B. Verdot was clear. By remaining anonymous, he was sparing the recipients the embarrassment of exposing their need to an acquaintance. The old teaching says it's more blessed to give than to receive. And that can make the acceptance of charity a very difficult act. Sometimes more difficult than the act of giving. The good work of charity that Frank Dick loved to do had to be left to others. Neither he nor George Monat ever recovered their financial stability, living out their remaining decades in extreme poverty. American notions of accepting charity are riddled with contradictions. Giving is the Christian thing to do, contributing alms in church and recognizing that we are our brother's keeper. To give in charity is ennobling, even blessed, but to accept it is degrading. While poverty was viewed as a sign of some deficiency of character, the shame of poverty itself was tolerable. There were so many in distress that Christmas 1933 that it was like a shared burden. No, the disgrace came not so much from being poor as from the implied suggestion that the burden of others was less than one's own. And so your appeal for charity was somehow more worthy. To gain another's pity at the expense of self-respect was a bad bargain. People had already been stripped so much. Self-respect was all they had left. Women shared the men's disdain for charity and the doles, but in the depths of the Depression, they had fewer options.
Looks pretty dark sometimes, but still we hold on to the ray of hope that this terrible depression will soon be over. And I want to state that I have never received charity of any kind, or have never complained to anyone before. But after I read your advertisement, I made up my mind to write to you.
So wrote Rachel DeHoff in her letter to Beaver Dot. Rachel Davis DeHoff grew up poor, leaving school at age 13 to work at the Duberhampton watch factory to help support her widowed mother and sisters. Later, she married Howard DeHoff, a machinist at Tinkham, and in 1927, they built a new home. She began to study for the real estate exam to prepare herself for a career. Then the bottom dropped out of the economy. Howard died of kidney disease, and into the hands of the Great Depression fell the 35-year-old widow and her 2 sons. Seeing the ad in the repository, she wrote her letter.
I saw in last night's paper the most human thing I have ever seen in print. Instead of giving to some church or organization to have your name mentioned over the pulpit or in the newspapers, you have chosen the silent way of remembering Christ's birth, for which you will surely be repaid. Well, I will write a little about my circumstances. You mentioned men. I am not a man, but I have taken the responsibilities of a man. My husband died 2 years ago, leaving me with 2 boys to support. And I work every day at real estate, and you know what an uphill job that has been. I made up my mind to write to you, not asking, just telling you my circumstances. But if you feel that I am deserving of some of the Christmas cheer that you are giving, then I can assure you it will be greatly appreciated and spent for the right kinds of things for my boys and myself. May God bless you. And wishing you a Merry Christmas and a prosperous New Year's, I remain Mrs. R. D. Hoff, 3039 9th Street Southwest, Canton.
There was little reason to fret for Rachel DeHoff or for her children. She was one of the first women in the state of Ohio to become a real estate agent, and she would prove herself to be the equal of any man in the business. She was tough, tireless, and smart, notwithstanding her limited schooling. She was also compassionate, taking in a childhood friend and giving her a home and family. Her 2 sons served in World War II, and one later became a judge in the Common Pleas Court here in Canton. Rachel DeHoff's life is a testimony not only to the virtues of hard work, but to the promise and reality of the American dream, of social mobility that had drawn so many to America. That promise was undergoing a high-pressure test at Christmas, 1933. For every Rachel D. Hoff, there were many more women, no less intelligent or industrious, who could not surmount the barriers before them. Barriers made all the more formidable by the Depression and the scramble for jobs and scarce resources. Meanwhile, the Hoover Company was still making vacuum cleaners and in a desolate marketplace trying to boost sales. The company's 1932 ad campaign made its pitch specifically to women at home, some of whom the company conceded might be feeling the pinch.
Superbly elegant, it's the new Hoover Deluxe Vacuum. The cleaner for the discriminating woman, satisfied with nothing but the very best. The drudgery of housework becomes a joy with the new Hoover Deluxe, and now at a new low price. Yes, the Hoover Vacuum is the one possession that enables the woman of modest means to enjoy equal luxury with her wealthier sisters. Elegance and economy. It's the new Hoover Deluxe. That's the new Hoover Deluxe Vacuum.
A year later, in 1933, the company began a marketing drive around a new slogan.
Gentlemen, Elmer is the key to 33. Now you remember last year's advertising campaign that pitched to the lady of the house. Yeah, didn't work as well as they thought it would. But I'm here to tell you that when you're on the streets in your territory going door to door, you want to talk to the man of the house. We call him Elmer, who makes the big decisions in the family. We want to boost our ad sales, so let's not waste our time talking to the little lady. Gentlemen, Elmer is the key to 33.
Every family that endured the hard times had a memory of someone who took a chance and carried them on credit.
A year ago in September, we lost a baby boy. I was sick nearly the whole winter, which meant doctor bills. In April of this year, our little 2-year-old had to have a mastoid operation. Dr. Underwood said he would operate and wait on his money. We have been unable to pay him a cent yet. We have a hospital bill and grocery at Mr. Brown's on Navarre Road. The last two I've been paying $1 on whenever possible. We also owe $16 at Jacob's funeral home. Superior Dairy has just been wonderful. They let us have milk for 7 months without paying anything. We live in a Timken house. They left us in a year without paying rent. Mr. and Mrs. R.M. Beggs, 1390 Roslyn Avenue, Southwest.
Dr. John Underwood was a Canton physician and surgeon who, like many of his peers, ministered to the poor, knowing that payment was unlikely. Many merchants and businesses extended credit or rendered service for little or no payment. For instance, nothing was more indispensable to a growing family than milk, and Superior Dairy extended credit to many families, and in so doing reserved for itself a place of esteem in the community of Canton. Sam had been both a lender and creditor during the hard years. To him, reaching out to the dispossessed was a quintessentially American act. By extending a hand to the needy that Christmas, Sam Stone, unlikely Santa that he was participating in a distinctly American rite, that of sharing the bounty of a new land with others. While hard times produced countless examples of selflessness and compassion, they also gave rise to passivity. People became increasingly accustomed to the sight of human suffering, and some grew calloused to the anguish all around them.
Those dancers would just sort of hang on each other's shoulders and just stumble around, and we'd sit there and watch them like fools. It was a crazy time!
Misery and entertainment converged at Myers Lake Park's Moonlight Ballroom, where dancers competed in the notorious dance marathon. A dance till you drop elimination with a cash prize for the survivors. The marathon of 1933 began on June 7th with 77 couples in the midst of a record heat wave. They were given 5-minute breaks every 15 minutes, 24 hours a day. The ordeal went on for 3,500 hours. That's 144 days. It was hailed as a world record. For the surviving 3 couples, the purse was a kingly $1,400. The marathon competition reflected both the best and the worst of that era, the stamina and the resignation, the cooperation and growing isolation. Those on the dance floor came to represent the anguish of ordinary individuals and families propping one another up, incapable of going on and unable to quit. The bleakness of Canton during the Depression, the specter of so many unable to scratch out a living, the sight of families pushed to the edge with no one to come to their rescue. All this must have surely triggered in Sam Stone recollections of his own childhood. He came to this country in 1902 when he was 15 years old. His name then was Samuel Finkelstein, and he arrived in New York Harbor with other members of his family and settled in Pittsburgh. His native Romania had recently passed laws that deprived Jewish citizens of many rights and the ability to make a living. What was a difficult life became impossible, and the Finkelstein family joined the waves of immigrants that fled oppression to seek a new life in the United States. He spent a few years in Pittsburgh. Then Sam Finkelstein set out on his own to find work and a new life in places like Kenosha, Wisconsin, and Chicago. He changed his name and arrived in Canton, where in the early 1920s, he went into business as the owner of Stone's Clothes in the prime location on the corner of Market and Tuscarawas. He married Minna Adolf in 1927, and they moved into a home on 17th Street Northwest. With his wife and 3 daughters, Sam enjoyed the life of a successful businessman and family man in Canton. Sam had been raised an Orthodox Jew in Romania, and he knew all about deprivation and oppression. He also knew the concept of tikkun olam, a Hebrew phrase meaning repairing the world. In Jewish ethical teaching, individuals and groups are called to address injustice, hunger, pain, grief, and need. This is to be done by giving to the poor and by constructing an equitable and just society. The gifts that Sam Stone gave that Christmas 1933 came from a man who understood what it was to be down and out. But there was more to it than that. It was no accident that he chose Christmas, a holiday marked for Christians, not Jews, and that he specifically wished his Gentile neighbors a merry and joyful Christmas. For Sam, the gift marked the kind of final arrival for him. He had finally found a place where he could be a welcome member of a community and make a contribution. Yet, ominously, the year 1933 was the same year in which Adolf Hitler came to power and Dachau opened its doors. In indeed, on the same day that the Beaver Dot ad appeared in the Canton Repository, the New York Times reported how anti-Semitism was once more inflamed in Europe. In Canton, one Romanian Jewish businessman was instrumental in making Christmas merrier and more joyful for other members of his community. Just west of Canton, on a tumble-down farm, lived Edith May, her husband James, and their 3 children.
Maybe I shouldn't write to you, not living in Canton, but for some time I have been wanting to know somebody who could give me some help. My husband is a good farmer, but we have always rented, and that keeps us poor. We now live on Hills and Dales Road and close to Maslin. We are supposed to pay $20 a month, but since we can't, we have been ordered off the place. If we could just get a place to farm on the shares, we could make a go of it. And oh my, I know what it is to be hungry and cold. We suffered so last winter, and this one is worse. Please, do help me. My husband don't know I'm writing, and I haven't even a stamp, but I am gonna beg the mailman to post this for me. Obliged, yours truly, Mrs. Edith May.
Edith May was one of a half-dozen African Americans to write to Mr. B. Verdot. Even in the best of times, their lives were difficult. But when the Depression descended upon the Edith and James May family, there was no margin for error, no buffer to keep out the cold and hunger. The children of Edith and James have many memories of hardship and struggle. They also have memories of mutual support and pride, and of triumphs, large and small. From their Depression-era childhood, difficult as it was, their daughter, Felice, has one memory in particular. It's a memory that's filled with magic. It was 1 week before Christmas, and Felice was to turn 4 years old on December 23rd. Usually there wasn't enough money to provide presents on either Christmas or a birthday. But something unexpected happened on December 23rd, 1933. Instead of turning in early after the farm chores were finished, the family piled into their rickety car and drove into the town of Massillon. The streets were brilliant with Christmas lights. and Edith May ushered her daughter into a five and dime. Felice May recalled the scene.
My eyes bugged out. I had never been in anything like that before. My mama took me back in that toy store and she said I could have my choice between a horse on a board that you pull with a string or a doll. I chose the horse.
A check from a stranger named B. Verdot bought that little wooden pony and made such a memory possible.
I pulled that horse up and down the lane. I've loved ponies all my life.
Even later in life, in her 80s, Felice May raised Welsh ponies and liked nothing better than to ride in her horse-drawn cart.
It was a remarkable time. But even though it wasn't, it was a better time. It was better because people were more kind.
We had a good life, whether my dad was out of work or not. We are happy. We have each other, we love each other, we survive. We survive.
There was a different feeling then. You felt united. You all endured the same thing.
The Great Depression taught unbiding lessons to the citizens of Canton. People learned during the Depression that they were all in this together, rich and poor, black and white, Jew and Gentile, and that only by acting in concert could they prevail. Even today, B. Verdot's gift enjoys a half-life in Canton. At Christmas 2008, following Ted Gupp's discovery of the B. Verdot documents, the repository ran an editorial citing Sam Stone and his generosity.
Stone himself was not a wealthy man, but he had done well enough for his time. He also experienced the loss of a business and had benefited from the help of others in getting back on his feet. And so, just before Christmas in 1933, Stone reached out to help others with no wish for acclaim. Our own time is tough enough, and there is no better role model than Samuel J. Stone.
$5 was so little, yet so much, but the message that B. Verdot sought to send was of priceless value. That even those most down on their luck were part of the community, and that the well-being of one was of concern to all.